For the longest time, the prevailing advice is you should always take a caster. With any faction that has access to the winds of magic, even with the dwarfs now with their weird non-magic runes, you still pretty much always want to have a caster. That being said, Kislev's lores of magic are not amazing. They're okay, don't get me wrong, they're pretty decent, all things considered, but in some situations you might rather have an additional healer. Now, Tzeentch is known, or starting to be known, for their egregious lord sniping. You generally have great magic missiles, actual magic shooting units as well, like magic damage shooting units. Not that that matters here, but in general, just a lot of firepower, right? They can snipe characters out very quickly. So my thinking with this build is you take 3 characters on bears who can all heal each other. That way you're relatively safe from being sniped by enemy tools. Now I'm up against my patron Spudhouse here. Just to start out with, we've got Kostaltin and 2 Patriarchs. The Patriarchs just have the heal. You can't see that in their current kit. But Kossar's Spears, 4 of them, and 2 regular Kossars to start for a return fire. We've got a War Bear Rider in reserve, 4 sleds, of course, 4 Winged Lancers, a Snow Leopard, and a couple of armored Kossars to hold a point into mid to late game if need be. For Spudhouse, he's coming in with an Exalted Lord of Change, the Burning Chariot, which I haven't been that big of a fan of, but we're going to see Spudhouse uses it in a way that I hadn't necessarily thought of using it. Turns out to be very effective. 3 Furies and 2 Blue Horrors, a Cultist in reserve with 2 Knights of Tzeentch. He's got 2 Spawn of Tzeentch, 2 Flamers, 3 Pink Horrors, and 2 more Blue Horrors. So let's jump on in. This is, of course, from one of my patron practice sessions. Those of you guys who don't know or not aware, new to the channel, on my Patreon, I have a tier where if you pay a certain amount, you'll get private practice lessons, so to speak, with me every month. And something I really enjoy doing, to be honest. It's a way for me to interact directly with a lot of my fans and have a great time playing some games, learning things together. Like in this particular battle, I really, like I said, have not been the biggest fan historically of the Burning Chariot. I haven't really found that shooting from the air to the ground is very impactful, but there's a few things to consider here. Number one is that the Burning Chariot does actually have quite a bit of armor-piercing weapon damage in melee. 380 overall weapon strength, 265 armor-piercing, 30 charge bonus. It's not incredible, but it is enough that if you cycle charge from the air, certainly with the barrier, in an open situation, you can get a lot of value. And the other thing, what Spudhouse is going to do here is he takes it off fire at will, and then is only going to use the ammunition while he's actually in melee combat, or within melee range, basically, of these characters. You can see a nice final transmutation there. One little miss shot there, and you can see why I'm not that much of a fan of it. And that's a pretty good example. That shot sort of comes in, doesn't really hit all that much. It doesn't do all that much damage, but he then turns it off fire at will and is going to conserve the ammo, conserve it for the right situation. Meanwhile, we've got the Kossars teeing off here. We'll zoom in close. Thankfully, there's not too much area of effect magic damage at this point, but we are going to see a Searing Doom try and get dropped on this blob. I'm able to mostly get out of the way. A few of those Kossars there getting bombarded, having a very rough time of it, but Blue Horrors moving up. We've also got the Chaos Furies kind of trundling around here. I'm going to start to summon in some mobile troops. We've got some bear sleds coming in to help screen out the Furies. Of course, Furies count as infantry size, so they will be subject to the anti-infantry bonus of the light war sleds. Their high overall weapon damage is just pretty good. Another shot there does come in, a little bit errant, but actually does quite a bit of damage to both these units of Kossars. Certainly the Flamer shots, the Exalted Flamer shots, which is what's riding on the back of the Burning Chariot. It can do a lot of damage, whether on the ground, in the air, in the right situation, but let's see. Got more Furies maneuvering over to go for a mass attack as my bears get on those Blue Horrors. You can see the Chariot maneuvering over to start to charge in. The Mass Furies going after and doing quite a bit of damage to my Kossars. The second line of Kossars, due to ranged units not being super responsive, are not actually going to help out that much in terms of shooting. But look at that point-blank Fire Blast right to the face of Kostaltin there. Saliak Soliloquy has been popped from one of the Patriarchs to try and keep everything healed. We're going to keep that on cooldown because I have 3 units with that same heal. You can see it's going to get popped almost immediately again towards Battle Hymn as well from Kostaltin. Also got some other survival aspects, so yeah, even if the Patriarchs end up going down here, as long as they can sustain enough damage to kind of use up the resources of Spudhouse, that in and of itself will be enough. But the Burning Chariot already used up a significant portion of its ammunition. very limited ammo count on this thing, so you have to use it wisely. But another thing to keep in mind is it does have Warp Flame contact effect in melee, as well as on its ranged attacks, right? So all of these units here that are getting hit by it are going to have their armor debuffed and have an additional weakness to fire, which does matter for these blue horrors. We've got some Chaos Knights moving in as well. Taking a wider view of things here, I've got some Winged Lancers deployed. We're going to bring out some more sleds, maneuver on over to point number 1. Objective number 2 is still being heavily contested in the center. And yeah, we're going to watch for the flamer shots still in cinematic cam. Oh man, that point blank blast just does so much damage to that Patriarch. Another Saliak's Lullaby gets popped. His passive actually gets popped as well because he took so much damage to start wavering. Another brutal final transmutation, little shot there before the charge, and then the charge in. Of course, the Warp Flame contact effect does mean that this weapon strength just straight up gets increased, right? One of the Patriarchs just gets completely barbecued right there. Blue Horrors also moving in to try and counteract sleds as generic new Big Bird comes over here. Is going to start to pound the other Patriarchs. So one Patriarch down, the other one's wavering, potentially about to get terrified off. We'll see. But Kostalton has survived, and the Burning Chariot is just about out of ammunition. So the Patriarchs have done their job tanking out damage well enough. The Winged Lancers kind of contesting against the Chaos Knights. With the support of the Kossars, they should do just fine. We're also capturing objective number 1 with those mobile forces over there. My opponent has not moved any forces to capture objective number 3, so there's that so far. But the thing about Kostalton is with his survival traits, he is extremely tanky, right? He is just in this big mess right here. The Patriarch's going to get routed off, but, I mean, he gets a number of effects here. Counteract the wounds trait that will give him a little bit of a debuff, right? You get Urson's Ward's the most important, gives him passive regeneration when he goes below 25% HP, but this one, same thing, below 25% HP, extra leadership and melee defense, so with those survival traits, make him surprisingly hard to kill if you don't have enough focus fire, and since a lot of those resources have focused on killing the Patriarchs, rightfully so, you want to get rid of their healing as quickly as possible. That does mean that hopefully Kostalton will be able to survive a good enough amount of time. He's done a lot of damage in Return to the Lord of Change, too. The Patriarch getting chased off by the Burning Chariot there. Unfortunate situation for me, but the point number 1 forces have made it back over. We're going to try a little funny maneuvering around this ruin right here to try and catch these Chaos Knights in a bad situation. We get them fixed on the bear sleds, which will do armor-piercing damage, and they should fire while in melee as well. Nice little rear charge here from the Winged Lancers. Here comes Big Bird, though, committing and escalating this fight significantly. Looks like we're going to see another Searing Doom get popped. Or, yep, another Searing Doom there on those Kossars. Kossars really haven't done a lot of contribution here, but they've kind of just been hanging around and eating a lot of damage, which I guess in and of itself is a contribution. We've got some Blue Horrors heading down to objective number 3. Patriarch does manage to recover his leadership and is going to make a stand there. We'll send down some Winged Lancers to go help. Let them arrive and start to do some work. Meanwhile, we're still just holding in these Chaos Knights. They will tank for quite a good amount of time, but fixed up against these Dread Sleds and the Winged Lancers. Kossars are firing in a tiny bit of shots, although Burning Head definitely pushing them away. I think we're even going to maneuver these Kossar Spears into melee. Yep, you can see they got their two-handed melee charge stance out. Oh, the Burning Head's chasing them. It is going to make contact after bouncing off some impassable terrain, but they still get in combat with these Blue Knights, Blueberry Knights of Tzeentch. And very quickly they're going to rout away, but hey, it's every little bit helps, right? Every little bit counts. Kostalton, again, tanking very well with those buffs active. He's just about at his healing cap, but 45 defense might not seem like a lot, but it's definitely enough that, I mean, even like the 50 melee attack with Lord of Change is not that great of a chance to hit. Kossar's continuing to fire in. We've got some more Furies coming in as reinforcement. I've just about gotten a 2-cap, though, with this objective number 3 also not being capped. It's a pretty good situation for me, although Spudhouse here, my opponent's done a lot of damage in return. We've been trading kind of evenly, more or less. Pretty close to even, all things considered, but in terms of objective capping, I'm a little bit ahead on that front. You chalk that up to mostly just experience, I should say. Spudhouse is, as are most people, not as experienced in Domination as me. I mean, obviously, I had the advantage of having played a lot in early access I kind of am already familiar with these matchups to a large degree, whereas other people are still learning them, still learning kind of the flow of domination. But Big Bird jumps in here. I think he's trying to force a blob, perhaps, or for another big final transmutation. We'll see, but with the support of the spawn, armor sundering spawn getting in here, they're going to do a lot of damage to the knights. He's trying his best to finish off this blob if he can, but poor Exalted Lord of Change here. Big Bird is having a little bit of a rough time. He can screen through his spawn, which he will do. Most of the knights have been routed off, but those spawn will continue to hold, obviously. They're unbreakable. As long as he keeps that barrier regenerating, that guy will functionally be almost unkillable for me. I mean, maybe I can provide a little bit of range pressure with these war sleds, maybe bring in some more Kossars, but the Furies are doing a good job of limiting that play right now. Over on the far side, totally missed the saga of these Winged Lancers. Got a great charge into these blue horrors, and they're going to finish them off, be able to secure this bottom objective, so good stuff so far. We've got some more blue horrors sneaking over to objective number 1 to see if they can't sweep that out from under me. We're going to get some sleds over there to dissuade them from doing so. Kostalton might actually go down here. Maybe not, though. Of course, getting that 45 defense. Much better than only 28 attack. Man, I didn't realize only 28 attack is really not amazing for Tzeentch spawn. Although the armor sundering certainly does help. He's down to only 45 armor. Means if they do make contact, they'll do quite a bit of damage. It's just they're going to struggle to. I'm not sure. Does this guy actually count as being in base contact? It doesn't look like he's doing many attack animations. I think the sled is actually technically in the way, which is really helping Kostalton here. A little rear charge, too, from the Winged Lancers there, just to keep the damage up on the spawn of Tzeentch. Snow Leopard recovers, going to come in, provide a little bit of anti-large magic damage. Not that the magic damage matters. They're not actual weird spawn, right? Like the Regiment of Renowned Warriors of Chaos spawn. They actually have full 160 weapon strength, and they have physical resistance too, I think. Anyway, plus armor sundering. Not exactly weird spawn, but they're pretty close. We'll get some shots of these Dread Sleds up close too. You can see that the Lord of Change now starting to take quite a bit of bow fire. We're able to develop some Kossars, just continue spamming that cheap hybrid infantry onto the center objective. And the range of Kossars over something like Blue Horrors means that in a straight shooting fight, as long as you can keep your opponent at a distance, you can sort of outshoot Tzeentch with Kislev. It's a little bit tricky, but I mean, with the sleds, you can outshoot and outfight, right? In many ways. Sleds moving in to clean up some of those Furies. And yeah, I mean, surviving that initial snipe attempt, keeping Kostalton alive until this late game has been pretty critical. He's now at his healing cap, still fighting tooth and nail. Beard and Brand, protecting the motherland, all the good stuff. Snow Leopard gets surrounded by spawn. The engagement kind of turns against it a little bit as the Cultist also moves in here, but that's fine. We've done our job of just keeping this, oh no, actually not keeping the objective secured. Objective has been claimed by Tzeentch, which means Spudhouse is able to maintain a relatively close, not get too far behind, maintain relatively close position here, but I do manage to push back that blue horror with the chariots, obviously, from position number 1, and at this point, Spudhouse just running very thin on the ground. I mean, despite the fact he's been trading pretty close to even, I mean, realistically, he's probably only about 1,000 or maybe 2,000 points behind on army damage value. The thing is, with healing, the fact that I was able to heal so much, and a lot of his units weren't able to regenerate their barrier. Like, often they got the initial value out of it, but then they couldn't cleanly disengage to be able to regenerate their barrier and cycle charge back in. So it ended up being that I was able to get some more healing, and in terms of damage value, I mean, the Patriarchs definitely took it directly on the face, which again, they're meant to just tank damage here and ensure that Kostalton can actually survive, which he managed to do and make back more than his share of damage value, so I kind of chalked that up to these two contributing, right? The Kossar is also very well limited by the Furies. Spudhouse did a great job of shutting them down initially. The thing is, though, is the sleds, right? I mean, the sleds got loose and were able to do quite a bit of anti-infantry damage, at least in this one case. Good shooting as well. Not to mention, I mean, the Winged Lancers might not have paid for themselves necessarily, but the Snow Leopard certainly did. And just kind of these guys working in tandem did pretty good for me. I have to say, though, I love this usage of the Burning Chariot. I might fully steal this tactic, to be honest, and sort of use this as the way to properly operate a Burning Chariot, because I have had this thing struggle to pay for itself. I've been using it, mostly misusing the ammunition, shooting at the wrong targets, but in this situation, I do see what you're going for, and it was very impressive Wasn't quite enough at the end of the day to fully finish Kostaltin, but did help kill both Patriarchs. Exalted Lord of Change, also a huge amount of damage value. You would see maybe some inflated value because Kostaltin actually got to his healing cap. But anyway, Blue Horrors also contributed quite nicely here. The Knights of Tzeentch, they did okay. I think I didn't really highlight it too much, but the one Flamer that was brought out had a little bit of a tough time. And I think in terms of infantry composition, I'll tell you guys what I told Spudhouse, which probably want to mix in some Forsaken here. Maybe cut, I mean, he didn't even end up bringing out these pink horrors. Maybe cut the pink horrors, and maybe even cut some of the blue horrors as well. Because Kislev's sort of hybrid ranged melee prowess, it skews a little bit more towards melee than Tzeentch in some ways. But that being said, Tzeentch has some really, really strong melee units, like the Knights, like the Spawns, like the Forsaken. So in particular, the Spawns combining with Forsaken, if you can get any kind of armor sundering as well, you can get a lot of the Kislev cavalry to 0 armor, and the sleds too, I think, to 0 armor pretty efficiently, and at that point, Forsaken will absolutely tear them to shreds. So I definitely want to see Forsaken in this matchup, but like I said, love this pick of the Burning Chariot. Definitely very, very effective, and we all learned something today, which I love. Thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully you also learned something, found it informative, entertaining. If that's the case, I would really appreciate it if you would share this video with someone who you would also think would also enjoy it. That's all for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe as well. That's it. We'll see you next time.